Welcome back. So we have quite a bit of changes to make. Let's just dig right into it. Now, the first thing we want to have fixed is the lives sprite is not showing up. So when the game starts, we want the lives icon to show. So right now we don't have a show for anything here. It just says switch costumes to live 3. So when I receive game start, I want to be able to be seen. So let's go into looks, choose show, and snap that in right there. Alright. We would want it to hide when we don't need it to hide. We only need it to be shown, and we would need it to be displaying game over once lives is to 0. So that's fine. Alright, so if I test this, it should look like the following. Alright. Awesome. Now, the next thing we need to fix is once they get to that -50 mark on the screen, we want them all to reset. We want to remove one life, and we need them all to reset, right? Because if they continue, the value of the lives variable, so if I look into lives right now and make that visible, lives is set at 3. But as far as more of these guys are approaching that -50 mark, they're going to make that value of the lives continually decrease. So we want to make it decrease by 1 and only 1 and reset. Alright, so they should jump back to the top of the screen and continue doing what they should be doing. Alright, so let's take a closer look at how we're going to do that. Okay, so the easier way to do this would be to take a look at the game environment, and we would say, well, when the player is hit by an object from one of the invaders, or when the player gets to -50 or better or lower, we want to broadcast a message that says player hit. The player has been hit. So while we have set lives in this value, we would really want to broadcast a message in there. So we will want to change this at some point in this video. Alright, so we'll return to this in a second. But the more important thing is to return to the game state object. So the game state has this set up, so when I receive, so when I get the message, well, the player has been hit. We don't have that message at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and create it. I'll call it player hit. So when the player has been hit, what do I want happen? I want everything on this game to reset. So I want the value of the lives to be reduced by 1. So I will do exactly what I did in the previous video. I'll pull a set lives out. I would pull subtraction. I would pull a variable out, lives, snap that in. So I would be doing this computation in this one place and one place only. In the previous video, you were doing it for every invader. Now you only need to do it for a single invader. Alright, so set lives to lives -1. I want that to happen once the player has been hit. It makes much more sense to put it in here anyway. And the other thing I need to happen is I need it to reset. So I want to broadcast, that's on the events, a new message, and that message is going to be called reset. So reset just means reset the pieces. Don't change the value of the score, don't change the value of anything. Alright, just reset, just move them back to their starting location. And this should take care of our newest issue. So off video, I'm gonna go remove this message, set lives to lives -1 from all of my invaders, and I'm going to replace it with a broadcast reset value. Okay, so I've made my changes. So each invader should look something like this, alright, with the broadcast reset in there and my direction, set direction taken out. Okay, now the next thing I want to do to make this all come together is change the top of this block by add in a different message. So when I receive reset, I want all these things to happen. So I'll just be swapping out blocks. Right? So this will be gone, and this will be added in its place. I want to make that change for every invader. And then the next video will pick up from this point.
Okay, welcome back.
Now, in our last video, I encouraged you to take a look at each invader and make a change where we would replace the when flag is clicked block with when I receive reset. Now, every invader should have this at the beginning, okay? So our ideal is to get rid of when that flag is clicked block, and it should appear in only one place within the game state. So the game state is the only one that should have a when flag is clicked button, and that in turn kicks off a bunch of actions that each sprite in your game should then react to. So if you notice, we have a game state in here and we have a reset button. Now the reset is going to be called for a number of different things. When the game is beginning, we want the pieces to go into their start locations. When the player has been hit or the lives has been updated, we want the pieces to also reset. So if you notice, reset has been called a lot. All right, reset is also being called inside of every invader when they get to a certain threshold of -50, meaning they're at this location roughly on the screen, then we want the pieces to reset. We want to remove a life and we want the pieces to reset. Now the other piece I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys to do in this video, the other piece I want you to add is to every invader, I want you to add a certain behavior. We don't want them to show every time they reset. For this reason, what if these invaders at the bottom row were destroyed in the previous round and you call a reset? Reset is going to force them to show back up. So we only want our pieces to show when a fresh game, a new game has started. So to get that to happen, I need to drag out when I receive game start. That's the only time I want my piece to show up. All right. I don't want it to accidentally come back on screen. Let's say Invader 1-1 was destroyed. I don't want it to be coming back on the screen once the reset has been called. All right, so it only shows up, is forced to show at the beginning of the game, and it just changes locations when it's destroyed. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to drag this group of blocks into every invader so it'll have the proper behavior. Okay, so an additional change that we need to make happen is in each invader I incorrectly instructed you to have the reset button, the reset message to be broadcasted when the position of the invader gets to the threshold, which is -50. We don't want to reset at this point exactly. We don't want it to go directly into a reset because we want to update the number of lives. So what we want in its place is to say player has been hit once the threshold has been achieved. This is going to cause some code to enact. All right, it'll cause in the game state the reset to be called. All right, so the player has been hit, the lives are going to be reduced by 1, and then the reset is going to be called. Previously, what happens is that entire step gets bypassed when we just say, okay, go ahead and reset. The lives never gets updated. So we need to make one more change. I'll do that once more off camera. I am going to go change this broadcast to play a hit for all of my invaders. Okay, so now we are going to test the viability of the threshold. I'm going to take the liberty of destroying a couple of invaders. And with Invader 1-1 selected, if I look at this part of the screen, I would notice the Y value is shown for me, Y is equal to 10. So I would expect when Y is less than -50, which is another 5 cycles, 6 cycles, this pattern of invaders should jump to the top and continue moving. Right? So I don't want these 3 destroyed invaders to return once they hit the threshold of -50. So now it's at -10. I have a few more seconds remaining in this video, and if you notice, it jumped back up to the top and it continued. Had that number wrong, it was closer to -50. So we noticed the pattern works. However, our lives did not update, so that's an easy fix. I'm going to pause the video now, and with 10 seconds remaining, the change needs to happen on the inside of the lives sprite. So I'm going to fix that in the very next video.